I'm at the Society for New Communication Research Symposium at Stanford University with Nora Barnes from the University of Massachusetts. Hi, Nora.
Hi, how are you, Sally?
Excellent. So you just gave us some really wonderful research that you've done with your students this year?
That's correct.
Okay, and this was about adoption of social media?
That's correct.
Okay, so could you give us some of the highlights?
I could. We basically track 4 different sectors of the American economy and look at social media adoption in them. So we do big businesses as personified by the Fortune 500. We do small businesses, which are personified by the Inc. 500. We do the largest charities, that's a Forbes publication list that comes out. And we look at colleges and universities, so we look at the academic sector. And we're looking at how all of these sectors are adopting social media. Are they blogging, podcasting, using Twitter, using Facebook, and we're looking at trends over time. Most of these groups have been studied now for 3 to 4 years.
Fantastic. So what did we see this year?
Well, for the first time, we're seeing a little bit of a leveling off in blogging. It seems to be becoming the mature tool. You have to create content, it's a little bit labor intensive, and so we're starting to see it level off. The adoption isn't quite so high as it's been in previous years. It hasn't declined, but it's just not, people are not starting blogs as with the frequency that they were before this. What they are doing is embracing Twitter and Facebook, and those are the biggest changes we've seen. In 2010, it's all about Twitter and Facebook.
That's great. So out of the Fortune 500, what percentage are on social media?
We actually have about 23% of them blogging, but we have about 60% of them on Twitter and about 50% of them on Facebook. So it depends on the tool, but the Fortune 500 seem to be favoring Twitter right now.
And then did you look at how much engagement or how they're using the tool?
We did, and what we found out, especially with the Fortune 500, is even though their blogging is limited, only 23% actually have a blog. That comes to 116 of the Fortune 500, and those that have it use it very well. They take comments, they respond, but we don't have a lot of blogging going on, so it's kind of interesting to see. In some of the other sectors, there are more blogs, but there are less of them taking comments, maybe not updating so much. So I think the use of these tools is going to be a big concern as we move forward.
Okay, and then on Twitter?
On Twitter, it's interesting because the Fortune 500 have embraced Twitter, but we don't find that they retweet or reply to tweets. We find that they like to post on Twitter. So they're using Twitter mostly as a broadcast medium.
And how are they doing with their Facebook pages?
The Facebook pages are a little bit more interesting, although it's predominantly broadcasting. They seem to be using most of their tools as the new PR tools, as broadcast medium. And so it isn't so much about dialogue, it isn't so much about creating community, as it is about getting out the corporate message.
Okay, so isn't social media really all about dialogue and conversation and community?
I think so. I mean, yes. I think social media is about being social. But what we found with the Fortune 500 is these very big, huge American corporations are slow to adopt. And we're finding that warming up to this open environment and to this dialogue with consumers is something they've been very slow to do. So yes, I think it is about being social. I think they're really at the very beginning of learning to use these tools well. I think all of the other sectors that we've studied are far ahead of the Fortune 500 in terms of their social media use.
So the smaller companies and the non-profits, they're being more social?
Absolutely. The not-for-profits totally run away with that. 90% of them are on Twitter, 95% of them are on Facebook. I mean, they have embraced social media, and people can say it's financial, that they don't have an advertising budget, but social media costs money too, and you still have to know what you're doing. You still have to understand the strategy. So I think that the not-for-profits understand the strategy, and I think they're using it better than any of the other sectors we've studied.
So would you say that our challenge going forward is we've kind of got over the hump of adoption, but we now have to really figure out how to do this well, how to do it right?
I think so. I think things like monitoring the buzz, understanding that people are talking about you online, whether you're online or not, you need to have some listening mechanism. You can't be part of the conversation if there are millions of people talking and you don't have a portal to that conversation. I think we need social media policies. If you are going to utilize social media, there has to be some guidelines to do that within your organization. So I think those are some of the challenges as we move forward. And then finally, I think measurement. We need to be able to measure the effect of the social media that we have in place, and we need to know that it's working, that we're talking to the people we need to talk to in some effective way.
Nora, thank you very
Oh,
much.
thank you. I appreciate your time.